Welcome to TINAH Talks, where time is not a healer, but we believe that we all have the power to heal ourselves and take our mental well-being into our own hands. This podcast is a byproduct of TINAH, the mental well-being marketplace, and a community platform at timeisnotahealer.com, providing you with the best products for your self-healing journey. Hit subscribe and follow us on socials if you want support on your mental well-being journey. We're your hosts. I'm Kelsey. This is Sophie. And this episode is all about self-care and how we really make self-care work for us in the way that it will be best for us, because there's so much stuff out there.
There's a lot to talk about on this subject, and this episode is actually for International Self-Care Day, which is on the 24th of July, in case you didn't know. And we wanted to talk about the difference between self-care and self-love, because we've done episodes previously focusing specifically on self-love, and this one is more focused on self-care. And to somebody that doesn't understand what those two words mean, maybe it sounds like self-care and self-love are the same things, but actually they are quite different when you deep dive into them. So we just wanted to kind of kick off by giving you a bit of a comparison between what is the difference between self-care and what is self-love, basically. So if we're talking about self-love, then please feel free to interrupt me if I get any of this wrong. If we're talking about self-love, we're talking more about kind of like our overarching emotional and mental attitude towards ourselves. So how we actually feel about ourselves, our worth, how we treat ourselves, how we speak to ourselves, the attitude that we present, the behaviors that we show in the world, and how what level of respect we give ourselves, more or less, versus self-care, which is like acts of things that we do. So things that we incorporate into our routines, things that we kind of undertake in terms of like habits and practical things, but different practices that we incorporate into our daily lives that basically improve our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Did I summarize that correctly?
Yeah, no, you did a great job. I think the way that I would describe it, and again, like everyone has their own perception of this, right? But I think that self-love is like, it's those internal, those thoughts and feelings that we have towards ourselves. And then self-care is putting that into action, right? How you take care of yourself, showing up and being kind to yourself, doing things to take care of your body, your mind, your spirit, whatever that may be. You're putting into action the self-love that you have for yourself, or you're trying to continue to cultivate the self-love you have through yourself, but through action, right? And I think I've talked about this before, but psychology is often based around like the trifecta of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And so think of like the behavioral side is self-care. That's self-love in action, basically.
Yeah. And they do kind of connect, don't they? So essentially, like, if you're not, in my opinion, if you're not practicing self-care, it's probably because you don't necessarily like haven't cultivated that self-love. Would that be accurate in saying?
Yeah, I mean, self-love and self-worth are a little bit different, so just be careful with the
True.
exchange of those words.
So many everything's.
Self everything, right? Self-compassion, self-worth, self-love, and they're like you guys can Google all the differences between those. I mean, they all pretty much mean the same thing, like giving love to ourselves, seeing value in ourselves, being kind to ourselves. That's a lot of self-compassion, self-worth, self-love. And I forgot what we were just saying there, but
just in terms of if they're the same thing, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is that oftentimes people struggle with self-love. And when you're struggling to internally love yourself, the good and the bad, that you see that in behavior. You see yourself struggling to do things that demonstrate that you are of value, that you are worthy of love, that you are worthy of kindness, you're worthy of compassion. And that in practice is self-care. Self-care is demonstrating, yeah, I am worthy of this. You're demonstrating to yourself. I think a lot of people often look for that reinforcement, that like that love, that compassion, that kindness. They look for it externally from other people, right? Like, oh, this person wants to be in my life. This person is being kind to me. They must see that I'm worthy and of value. But we have that really backwards. We are always worthy of love and kindness and compassion, like behaviors. We're always worthy of that. And we have to first give that to ourselves. And a really good, visible way of seeing this is, are you engaging in self care? Are you demonstrating to yourself that you're worthy of love? Are you showing yourself that you value your mind and your body and your feelings, right? I think that's how I look about it. And I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how I think about it.
Yeah, 100%. I think that makes perfect sense. And they're so closely linked, I feel. And just generally going back to all of the selves, like all of that is kind of so closely linked, because if you don't have that level of self-compassion to say, oh, do you know what, so it's okay if you take the afternoon off today because you need to go and have a little break, for example, then it's probably because I haven't got that self-love, and then I'm not doing the self-care, so it's all kind of interlinked, I feel like. So that's essentially why I guess that we want to talk about, like, why should we have that self-care routine? Like, why do you think that is so important for somebody to like cultivate?
Yeah, I mean, the old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? Like,
100%.
we need to take care of ourselves first so we can show up best everywhere else, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. If you're putting everybody and everything else first, you can only do that for a short period of time before you burn out, which it's like when you're not taking care of yourself, eventually your body gives out for you. Your body will make the decision for you that, like, it's tired, it's exhausted, it's got no care, no self-love, right? Like, it's done. And so that's when you start to see things with, like, mental health. You have anxiety, or anxiety attacks, panic attacks. You have a lot of, like, up and down moods. You're constantly fatigued, or there are other health issues that start to develop. You can get, like, as we'll probably talk about this a little bit, and we've talked about it in other episodes, but like our gut is the center of a lot of where that serotonin is produced, which influences our mood and all of that, right? People start to develop like gut issues, inflammation, IBS, all that sorts of stuff. And that's because your body is telling you it's had enough. But if you take care of you first and you prioritize your energy levels, like your feelings, your thoughts. And this isn't being selfish. This isn't, saying like, oh, F everybody else. I'm going to only focus on me and do me. It's about making sure that you feel good enough to go out into the world and share everything that you have.
Definitely. I've got so many examples of that. Like, I really struggle if I haven't been taking good enough care of myself, because essentially that's what self-care is.
Mhm.
I get really severe inflammation, and I've struggled with this over the past few years. And I can give a couple of like really specific examples of when I used to live in England, and I used to obviously, like, when I first started my business, I was working really long hours just to try and get things off the ground and like try and get it moving, get it going, and build something for myself. But that led me to burning out, and I couldn't see at that time. I wasn't really doing that much like work on myself. I wasn't really that focused on my mental health.
Mhm.
This all kind of came from off of the back of this, actually. And I was working at some points like 13-14 hour days, which is obviously crazy. And I just wouldn't take, I couldn't see that I needed to go and take like an hour of my day to go and do something just specifically for myself, to look after myself. And in some
Yeah.
cases as well, like I would literally be rolling out of bed, going to sit in at the desk, and then just cracking on with my day. I wouldn't even get up, go shower, get ready. That would all come like later on in the day. So I just wasn't looking after myself. And then I would eat shit because I just didn't have time to cook. I wouldn't necessarily feel like I could have time to go to the gym, even though that would have really benefited me. And I've been going to the gym for years and years and years. I've been going to the gym since I was 18 years old. I'm now 32. So I've been going to the gym for years, and I just didn't take the initiative to take myself to the gym like in that period of time. And I burnt out. I kept burning out, and I burnt out maybe 3 or 4 times before I got the fucking wake up call to be like,
Yeah.
Sophie, you have to look after yourself, because ultimately, exactly what you just said, you can't pour from an empty cup. And
Yeah.
this business can't run anymore. It's not functioning because
You
you're not
can't function.
functioning.
Yeah. Yeah.
essentially you're an extension of your business if you're a business owner, and if you can't function, then how bloody hell do you think your business is going to function? So I really had to learn that lesson the hard way, and ever since
Yeah.
that point on, like, I've got loads of different examples of like inflammation coming up in my body, and now I recognize the symptoms. Like right now, I'll be honest, I've had a period of like quite a long period of stress, like of different things happening in my life, and I'm first of all went through it mentally, and now I'm getting it all physically, and I'm having to really consciously be like, oh, okay, you've got inflammation today, like my skin's been really bad, and I don't normally struggle with bad skin, for example.
Yeah.
And I know it's bad because I'm overproducing, it's called sebum, which is essentially produced by overproduction of cortisol. And as somebody that hasn't really ever had really awful skin, I understand that this isn't a normal thing. Like, it's because it is coming out of stress, and I've only ever experienced this when I have had extra stress happening in my life. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, I'm gonna have to do, like, not work as hard, or like gonna have to try and take my mind off of some of these things, big stressful things that are happening in my life,
Yeah.
and use that, take my attention from that onto myself, and figure out like a way to relieve some of this stress, because otherwise this information is just going to keep happening.
Yeah. I want to point something out that I think most people don't recognize, and I learned this from working in the psych field. The irony is that the things we have to do to take care of ourselves when we're sick, and in this context, we're talking about like mental health. We're not well, we're burned out, that kind of sick. And if there's physical symptoms that come with it, okay, great. But the things that we have to do to take care of ourselves when we're sick are the exact same things that we could do prior to being sick to help us stay resilient and strong and not going down that route because they're the exact same thing. So there's a couple of different things to do when we are sick versus not, but a lot of the core practices are the same. In order to prevent me from being burnt out, I have to mind my sleep. I have to mind my nutrition. I need to have active practices that are calming my nervous system. I need lots of body movement. Those are all things that help me stay resilient in the face of my stress or any like daily adversity. Those are also the same techniques or practices that you need to use to start combating when you're sick. Now, that might not be the immediate thing that you do, like a lot of body movement, that kind of thing. But if you are burnt out, you're overwhelmed, your mental health is not doing really well, the core practices are get back to the basics. Are you sleeping enough? Work on your sleep. Next step is, are you getting enough nutrition and water? Next step is a little bit of body movement. Now we can throw in some practices that are going to help with like lowering cortisol, like nervous system management. They are all the same. And that's the irony that I think a lot of people don't realize. And I wish something that like doctors would prescribe more.
Yeah, 100%. So I guess maybe if we talk about like what classifies as self-care, you've kind of listed off a few things there.
Right.
And I guess kind of like for me, I would say I do quite a lot of different things in terms of self-care. It just kind of depends on like what my mood is. But if we look at like
Yeah.
generalized self-care, we can think about exercise. Obviously, moving your body is good for you. It releases energy. It helps you kind of engage in like a physical activity. Like, it could just be walking, could be going out for a walk. It gets you your mind thinking about something else, like focusing on the present moment. I think quite a lot of things in this self-care category are things that draw you back to that present moment in time, and I think exercise is one of the things that does do that. So just going out for a walk, trying to be maybe in nature, that would also be really nice. Doing some yoga, gentle yoga, boxing, get out your aggression if you're feeling it. Go to the gym, dancing, exactly. Like just generally moving your body is obviously really, really great form of self-care.
Let me ask you. So when people think about self-care, a lot of it's like bubble baths and, whatever, like facial care routine, like doing a face mask and all that. Not for me. Like, I don't, that's not, I mean, it
Yeah.
is self-care for sure. It's you being kind and compassionate to your body and taking care of your body for sure. I know a lot of people who like love their baths. They love doing like face masks, all that. But like for me, because I'm already in an anxious state or like to prevent like anxiety, meaning I need to shut my brain down, those don't necessarily help me shut my brain down. So I am not necessarily taking baths or doing like a shower is great. I do know like I have to make sure I'm showering every day, or you miss a day occasionally because you're just chilling, lounge around. That's fine. But I notice that specifically for me, if I start to deteriorate in my mood or that kind of thing, showering is like the number one thing that I got to make sure I'm doing. But yeah, like not I don't know. For me, that's not a thing. Is that a thing for you? Do you find it beneficial?
Um, no, bath, candles, none of that, no. But showering, yes. I
Yeah.
love a shower. Like I
Mhm.
I am a very like clean, have to be clean person. Like I hate it when I even like remotely feel a little bit dirty. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, sometimes I'm lazy and be like, okay, like I can't bother to I
Yeah.
do have a shower every day, but like if
Yeah.
I don't know, was hungover or something, maybe I would just lay in bed. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Lounge
But
around.
I don't really drink anymore, so that probably doesn't happen. But like in general, no, baths, that kind of thing isn't really my thing. And funnily enough, I tried to make it my thing in lockdown because like what else were we doing?
Right.
And I thought, okay, like after this burnout period, I was like, right, what can I do to relax myself? So I figured, oh, I'll have a bath, I'll do some reading. I get
Yeah.
into the bath. I'm sorry, I do not know how people have hour-long baths. Like it is like for me, it's like fucking torture. Like I
Yeah.
love showers. I love going in the shower. Like I think that's so much fun. But going in a bath, like you get in it, it's already like burning your feet off as you get into the bath. Like what the hell? And then it's like all flipping bubble baths like coming out of the side of the bath as you get in it if you've like put it up too high. Then you get in it, you're in it for like 2 minutes, you're overheating, your body's like, what the hell is happening? You've got into like really too hot water. And
Yeah.
then you're like shriveling up like a prune. Like I can't cope, like can't cope with it. Like it is not for me. So I rate you if you can sit in a bathtub for an hour, like go you. That's your form of
Yeah.
self-care.
Go
I
you.
really appreciate that for you. But for me, it's
Yeah.
it's not the one. I
Yeah.
do understand like how it could be relaxing, but like I'm not somebody that can sit in water, stagnant water
Yeah.
as well, for
Yeah.
longer than like 30 seconds. It's just not for me.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I feel you. I would say like for me, my most, and I've said this on many, many episodes, my most like potent, like the best self-care for me um are four things, I think. It's I have to be getting my 8.5 hours of sleep. Although like now in the last like 2 years, I'm starting to like shrink down to 8, where 8 is my normal, which I hate. But I used to be someone who'd sleep like 10 hours, right? That I've always needed sleep. But sleep and nutrition, and more so it's like I have to eat. If I don't eat, I'm nuts. Like and I know this is a thing for like ladies, you get hangry, but like I seriously can feel my sugar dropping and then I can't focus, and I can still be pleasant and nice. I'm not like
I
outwardly,
can't
maybe
be.
sometimes to my
I rate you
boyfriend,
if
I'm
you
a
can
little
still
bit
be pleasant and nice when you're hungry. I'm not.
sometimes I'm a little sassy to my boyfriend, but like I'm so regimented about being like eating and feeding myself, and even like Sean, about feeding me, like making sure I got food, like it's great. So it's my sleep, my nutrition, um, yoga. Like that is the exercise for me. I mean, I can do other exercise and I do like other exercise, but yoga is a grounding exercise. It's not high intensity, because high intensity increases your cortisol even more. And like that's the opposite of what you want to do. And then for me, it's the breathing, the breath work, like being able to like settle into my body and reconnect mind and body in the present moment. It's just those four things are key for me.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to something that you said earlier, I forgot to mention this at the time, but I listened to a podcast once with Jay Shetty, and he was
Mhm.
talking about having that kind of like routine, particularly in the morning, like when you first start your day. And the way he spoke about it was like you're putting your armor on for the day. It's like your protection, it's like
Yeah.
your barrier to the world. So as soon as you go out into the world, you're ready to face the day, kind of thing. And I fully
Yeah.
agree with that. And I'm very similar to you. Like I have to wake up, I have to do a quick square breathing. It can be 5 minutes if I don't have time. Like this morning, I didn't really have time.
Short.
I also ideally need 8 hours of sleep. I don't always get it because I don't always sleep that well, but like in general, I need 8 hours sleep for me to be functioning. The food thing, oh my God, like I am not nice to be around if I'm hungry. Like it's not bad for
Noted.
me. Yeah, and like quite a lot of people that know me well enough, like that hang out with me on a daily basis, and that particularly whenever I've been in relationships, they know that if I'm slightly a little bit hungry, they're like, right, let's get you food. Like we're going to the shop, because I particularly am sometimes not that good at that. Like I forget quite often to eat. Like I need to make that more regimented, and like it's not that I'll kind of like go and it'll be like, oh my God, it's 1 o'clock. Like I have a real problem sometimes with time management anyway. So like it'll get to like 1 o'clock and I'm like, oh my God, I've not eaten, but I've been to the gym and I've done all of these things, but it's no wonder I'm hungry. Like, so that is one thing that I would like to get better at. But I agree with you, like, and eating healthily as well, and not, there's a difference between just eating because you're hungry and like you're just going to grab and go something, and actually nourishing your body. Like the true looking after yourself, giving yourself care would be giving yourself nourishing food that is actually going to be filling. It's going to last you a longer time. It's going to give you the nutrients that you need. Like I'm very guilty sometimes of like being on the move, constantly on the go, just grabbing the closest thing. But I've got a few things now that I'm now like, right, if you're hungry, don't go and buy a protein bar in the shop, or like go and buy a poke bowl, go and buy a salad bowl, like go and get an acai bowl, something like that. Like it's like, okay, get something that's going to fill you up for at least a little bit longer. But I am very guilty of like, I want the sugary snack when I'm hungry kind of thing.
Because what's happening is your glucose is dropping, and then so you crave sugary things versus being like having a desire for like the protein or the carb. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. The other thing that I do like to do in the mornings particularly is like a little mindfulness activity. So either a meditation, and I have a membership that I'm part of that I really like their meditations. It usually involves a little bit of journaling, and then like a kind of a subconscious hypnosis meditation. And then I also like, one of the things that is quite unique to me probably, but some people will relate, some people definitely won't, I actually swear by like tarot cards. Like I really like to pull a tarot card on like every day more or less. So I've incorporated that into my routine now. Like before I start like my day, and I've said this before, I turn off my notifications. That's also part of my self-care, so that I'm not overwhelmed of that. But before I delve into my phone and like start looking through my notifications, I'll pull out tarot cards. I'll do like the energy of the day, the action that I need to take today, and any advice that the universe has for me today.
I'm gonna start having you pull a Kelsey card. Do all your self-care ones, and then be like, this one's for Kelsey. Just take a picture and send it to me.
Yeah. I'll send it to you tomorrow when I do my little pull. I actually didn't do it this morning. Sometimes I forget, but most mornings I do it. I've started to incorporate that, and that for me is just like, okay, like I'm on track today. Like I don't necessarily need anything to come out of it. I just want to like do it for myself.
Yeah, that's nice. It's very nice.
And then the other thing I think that is important, we've spoken about like hygiene and like obviously like grooming yourself. Like I also am sometimes very guilty of not getting fully ready. I think because most of the time I live in beach towns, like the general vibe is not getting ready.
You know what's funny is for me, so like I don't know if you guys have noticed, I'm a girl that like I don't do shit with my hair. I don't do makeup. I like the most I do is like maybe mascara now and again. Like it's just grew up with my dad. It wasn't something I learned. I never got into, and I'm lucky enough that I can get away with it, right? So, for me, I loved being in warmer weather temperature because getting ready for me, I don't have to do any of this, but I could put on a cute little outfit because it's hot. So I'm just putting on like my little crop top and my cute little shorts, and then I look like I'm ready to go for the day. When I'm in places that are a little bit colder, I'm in my leggings, I'm in my sweatpants with a little tank. Like that's literally what I'm wearing right now, sweatpants or leggings and a tank top. And like I feel like I'm less dressed versus if I'm like out and about in warmer weather, I'm like good to go.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. I think when I'm in a city, so like right now I'm living in a city, I make more of an effort here than I would if I was at the beach. Like if I was living by the beach, which is where I spend 80% of my time, I literally just chuck on my pair of denim shorts, probably chuck on like this little boob tube, and off I go down to the beach. Like I don't.
I love it.
How do you call this in America?
A tube top, but I guess I've never heard it combined with boob tube. And I'm a fan. I'm gonna steal
Uh,
it.
Stuck on my beach. If I go down to the beach, wear flip flops, but like right now I'm in the city. Like you can see, I've kind of got a little bit of makeup on, not a lot, but like a little bit. I've like put mascara on.
Yeah.
I did sort of my hair this morning. It's gone frizzy now because the humidity here right now is like off the charts. But yeah, I do make a bit more of an effort, but I think like doing some kind of like grooming activity always makes people feel better, because I think if you, like you say,
Oh,
if you're
for
like
sure.
hanging out in like your tracksuit, no makeup on, like you're not going to feel good about yourself. And it's not to say that you should go and get dressed up to the nines or whatever, like you're going to go out on a night out, but just like, you know, change your outfit to something that's still comfortable, like, but makes you feel better. Maybe like put like a little, if you're a girl, like you want to wear makeup, put a little bit of makeup on, like put jewelry on,
Right.
whatever it might be, to make you feel a little bit more like put
Yeah.
together, I guess. And also
I
something
have
else I do grooming wise would be my nails. Like they're not done right now, let's not look at them,
mine are really
but
bad right
but usually I really feel better about myself if I have my nails done. And I only got into this when I lived in Bali, because in Bali it was so cheap to get your nails done and they were
now. Yeah.
really high quality. And this is now a very expensive habit to have got into.
Yeah.
But it
That's
is
why my
something that,
nails are I did mine in Colombia, but like I refuse to do them in the US because it's so
too
insanely
expensive.
expensive. So they're all
Yeah.
grown out.
Yeah, exactly. So like wherever I am, like if I'm in a country that it's like reasonably priced to get my nails done, I'll get them done.
Yeah.
And also I personally do my eyebrows and my eyelashes. Like I do that just
Yeah.
generally, like just dye them because that makes me feel better. So there are definitely like elements of grooming that I have in my routine. And then I think the last one to maybe talk about is hobbies. So I don't know if you've got any. Have
Yeah.
you got any hobbies?
I mean, does yoga doesn't count as a hobby?
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
yoga does count as a hobby.
Yeah, so I mean, yoga I would say is the biggest one. The new one that I'm trying out that I've just started is rollerblading. So like inline
Oh,
skates. I got some for my birthday. I've mainly rollerbladed around the house because I just got them like a week ago. But I haven't like had a chance to go outside and use them, but I'm pumped to do that. Hobby wise, I mean, I love music. I'm a huge music person. So I love seeing live music, and not just like DJ sets. Like I can see, you know, with the full band, the whole thing. So I'm always I'm always on the look for like a good show at a nice venue, or even if it's like a full-blown music festival, I'm always down for that. We just went to Electric Chorus for our first time. Had a freaking blast. And that, like, you know, like it's just nice because you get out because you're doing all the things. You're in sunshine, you're moving your body and you're dancing, you're meeting new and really friendly people, and you get to listen to some really good music. And so I would say that's partially a hobby for me for sure. And
yeah.
cooking.
Oh, cool. Okay, you enjoy
I love
cooking.
Oh, I love cooking. Yeah, it's nice. It's more so like now that with my partner, he also cooks. And so it's nice to like be in the kitchen and have a little glass of wine or like a mocktail. And I've been really big on the mocktails lately, and put my magnesium in there for my anxiety, you know, help it out. But it's nice to like dance around each other, chat, talk, listen to music while we're like making some food. We haven't done that in a while. He's been cooking quite a bit for me, so I'm a lucky girl, but it is something that's really nice to do when you're trying out like a new recipe or something fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I personally can't relate to that one because I
You
hate
don't like
cooking,
cooking.
but
I know you.
that is never going to be one of my hobbies. I won't lie. But I used to be one of those people that says I don't know what my hobby is. Like, I don't have a hobby. I can't find something that I
Mhm.
like. And then in the pandemic, actually, I mean, I've always gone to the gym, but I would never have considered that a hobby. I would have just considered that something that I do. Like I said, I've been
Right.
going to the gym for years. But every now and again I'll dip into something new within that gym realm. Like a few years ago I went to Thailand and trained Muay Thai, then I got into yoga. Like, you know, I'll dip into like different things. But for me in the pandemic, one thing I did really get into, and this was purely by chance, was bouldering. So like climbing
Oh,
without any
cool.
ropes. And
I do actually enjoy bouldering. I don't do it like frequently enough, you know?
I don't anymore because I'm usually nowhere near a bouldering gym. But and
And
also
gyms are
I
expensive.
sprained my ankles last
Mm,
year, and I just don't want to risk hurting myself
yeah.
again. Not through bouldering, but like I just can't go through that process again.
Yeah.
So I'm if I did go again now, I'd be very cautious. But anyway, in the lockdown, I after the pandemic came, when we started being released into the wild again, there was a co-working space near me in
Mhm.
where I lived in London at the time, and that co-working space was in a bouldering gym. So
Nice.
I'd always been like this person that doesn't have hobbies. I was like, nah, don't hobbies aren't for me. Don't know who has time to do a hobby is basically
Hmm.
what I would used to say. And then I started going to this bouldering gym, and you got with the co-working membership, you got a free bouldering membership, and it was so good because everybody in the co-work would kind of stop at lunchtime and go to boulder. It like forced me away from like my desk so that I was actually
Yeah.
taking time to focus on myself. And when you're
Yeah.
bouldering, like I was saying earlier, it brings you back to the present moment. You can't not think about what you're doing, otherwise you could really hurt
Yeah.
yourself with
You
that.
fall.
Exactly. So like I got into bouldering, and that kind of became my hobby for a period of time. And one thing I started realizing, the longer I did it, what I realized was, when I was a child, I used to love climbing. Like I loved climbing. I'd climb
Same.
on anything. Like
Yeah.
like my granddad had a tree in his back garden. I would climb the tree all the time. I'd climb onto people's roofs. I would
Yep.
climb on like, like the monkey bars. I'd go along the monkey
Yep.
bars, all of that stuff. I used to absolutely love that. And I think if you ever struggle to figure out like what your hobby is, or like what
Go
you
back
want
to
to do,
childhood.
go back to what you did in your childhood,
Yeah.
because I've really realized, like, and again, it's all come, we'll maybe do another episode on like inner child stuff, but
Hmm.
if you loved it when you were a kid, the chances of you loving a version of what you liked as a kid as an adult is very, very
Yeah.
high. So if you're
Yes.
struggling to figure out like what your hobby actually is, I would really recommend to go back and think about what were those things that you loved to do as a kid, and see what
Yeah.
the version of that would be in adult life. Like there's definitely things in my childhood that I wouldn't be able to do now,
Do
like
now. Yeah.
trampolining, for example. Like I wouldn't go and do trampolining, but like I'm sure there's like other ways that I can incorporate that same kind of like adrenaline adventure rush into my daily life now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you said that because as a kid, I was really fascinated. We talked about this, and I think in the last episode, I was talking about that chick Wailani, the Hawaiian chick in a full-blown
Oh
tracksuit
yeah.
on a mountain with her TV show.
Oh
I
yeah.
would watch it as a kid. I was so into it, and I wanted to get into yoga because of that. Forgot about it, got into yoga at a later point in life, and then it like reminded me, like, oh yeah, that I was like really into this as a kid. The rollerblading, I actually used to rollerblade quite intensively, doing ramps and stuff like that when I was younger, and I'm now getting back to it, right? Because like I haven't done it since I was a kid. It definitely, there are things that you can look back on that can help you kind of reground and reconnect with yourself, which is all a part of that self-care journey.
Definitely. The other one that's quite funny for me that I have only realized more recently as I got older is
Yeah.
like as a child I was obsessed with kind of how do I explain this, like when it's a TV show or a film isn't that presents a concept that's like maybe bigger than us. So like
Uh-huh.
things like, going time travel, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah,
Like there was a program in the UK, if you grew up in the UK and you were in millennial, you'll most definitely remember, it's called the Queen's Nose. And you could like, it was a 50p pence. The 50p is just a coin that we have in the
yeah.
UK, lower value than a pound, but it's like a unique shape. I think it's like, how many sides has it got? Maybe 8, or I can't remember. But it's just a coin, and she used to rub the coin, and it would like something would happen, kind of thing. And then there was
Mhm.
another one that was like Bernard's watch, and he could stop time. He literally had this stopwatch basically, and he'd be like, stop, and then time would freeze. He'd run around and do all of his things, and then he'd come back and be like, oh, let's go again. And like I now associate that with like this whole, I've got a very spiritual side to me. I like tarot cards. I like all of those like kind of like psychic readings, all of those things. And I kind of associate that like
Sci-fi
of,
fantasy.
yeah, like exactly with this hobby that would essentially be one of my hobbies, would be tarot reading.
Right.
I kind of associate with that now. So it is very interesting when you like start getting into something as an adult, and then you look back to your childhood and you can make the association.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's fun. It's nice. It's like a nice remembrance and regrounding kind of deal. Hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Is there anything else you think we've missed in terms of like talking about what self-care looks
So
like for us and like what classifies as self-care?
no, I think that's all really good. I think a really good point to just kind of talk about before we end is, that feeling of I don't have time for self-care and where do I start? I know that I think like a lot of people who have never engaged in self-care before, like actively, like consciously thinking about it, this is usually where they're at. It's like, well, I don't have time for that. I wouldn't even know where to start. I myself personally, right? So I got pretty burnt out like a couple months ago, and I had to really like take a step back, and like I took some time off. I was planning to take time off, but like leading up to it, I got really burned out and took a trip and been traveling. And since I've been back, right, fast forward a few months, I'm trying really hard to get back to my old self-care practices because I was so burnt out and those things had fallen by the wayside and therefore like led to me being burnt out. And I think that there's a couple of really key things to remember here is right, it's a conscious decision. Self-care doesn't just happen. You have to actively be a participant in it in providing these things for yourself. You have to hold space in your life for it. And I know the statement is, "Oh, I don't have enough time." Well, you do. We all have the same time in a day, and it's if you want to take care of yourself and you want to show that love to yourself, it's really important that you do it. So you have to be on board. It's a decision you have to make, but start small. Start small with where you're at and snowball off of existing habits. So, like for example, if you want to incorporate like a self-care routine where you're doing breath work, right? Because you know that it's going to help you're in a state of like really in like heightened nervous system, you're really stressed out, but you've got a lot of work on your plate, the work isn't going anywhere, you've got to do stuff. You can incorporate a 5-minute breath work practice. It's small. 5 minutes in the grand scheme of things is 5 minutes you sitting on your phone on Instagram, right? Like it's very, very small. Piggyback off of already existing habits. So, like for me, I know that every morning I'm going to brush my teeth. That's like a habit that's just been ingrained in me. I do that whether I'm stressed out or not. And I start doing, if I'm trying to get back into a habit, I'll be like, okay, 5 minutes after I brush my teeth, I'm going to do some deep breath work. Just 5 minutes. And you start small. See if you can consistently keep that up for 2 to 3 weeks. And if you are, that's when you're starting to build a rhythm and a routine, and you can keep going with it. And then you can add on a new thing and say, okay, I'm going to try one time a week to do yoga or to go to a kickboxing class or to do like whatever it is that you want to try. Start small, be really, really realistic, and give yourself grace when you mess up. Don't go, like we all have that all or nothing mindset like, "Oh, I set these goals, I'm going to try and do it." And then we do it real hardcore for 6 days in a row and then we miss a day and we're like, "Oh, well, we messed up. Can't do it anymore." It's more so about can you show up and keep yourself accountable even when you mess up and give yourself grace in those moments and just realistically see, what can you apply in your life? And when you don't show up, take it as a learning moment to be like, why didn't I show up and do this? What got in the way? Is there a better time in the day to do this, in a different place, a different type of activity that would be better for me? It's about being really honest with yourself and taking the small baby steps and not giving up just when it doesn't go right. I don't know if I hope that made sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big thing that you said there is like making time. Like I think a lot of people will use the excuse of, oh, I don't have time, I've got to go and pick up my kids from school, or oh, I don't have time, I've got so much work to do, or oh, I don't have time, like there's only so many hours in the day. Like, like there's always, the thing is we can make excuses for absolutely everything. I'm guilty of it. Everybody is guilty of making excuses, but the difference is, like how many hours a day do you watch Netflix? How many hours a day do you
Roll on your
sit
phone.
in bed scrolling on your phone? Like how many out times do you snooze your alarm in the morning? How long do you scroll and look on your phone or watch YouTubes or TikToks, whatever, before you go to bed? These are
Right.
all things that most people do. I'm not saying this is everybody, like this is a bit of a
Yeah.
generalization here, but most people spend a significant amount of their free time on their phones or on their
Mhm.
computers doing something or another.
So I'm going to add this because this is a really good example. So we're talking about adding things in self-care habits into your life, right? Sometimes it has to start with withdrawing the things that are not supporting you. So
Yeah.
when I came back from, being away for 2 months and all of that, and I was working partially during that time, but part of it was like a straight up holiday. But when I was back home, I was like, okay, I have to get back into my routines again. And I don't want to revert back to what I was doing before because it'll cause burnout. The first thing I did before restarting breathing or any of that, the first thing I did was I'm not allowed to get on my phone first thing in the morning because I had gotten a really bad habit of looking at my phone. And what I said to myself in my brain was, I'm just so tired. I need to get up at 7 o'clock. The quickest way for me to get up is look at my phone because it's a dopamine trigger. So it like wakes you up because it is a dopamine reward. But I could tell the difference when I looked at my phone right away in the morning and how it set me up for the rest of my day and like my mood and how like I'd get on my phone more. I'd want to like keep picking up my phone, all that. So I just decided the first thing before implementing any of my old habits again is I'm taking this away. I'm not, it was that and my bedtime. I'm like, I have to be in bed at 9:30. Ideally, I'm asleep by 10:30, but my goal was to be in bed by 9:30. And I've been able to maintain that. So I'm not getting on my phone in the morning. I'm in bed by like, actually was in bed at 9 o'clock last night and the night before. Like 9:30 is my break off time. And then I'm now getting back into things. The habit I'm focusing on is walking. I want to be able to walk 5 miles a day, which for anyone who works at their desk knows that's kind of a pain in the butt. But like you figure it out, like what's a good rhythm. Because I know when I'm up and moving, I feel so much better. I don't feel as exhausted, even if I am tired from the amount of work that's on my plate. So yeah, so sometimes it's about withdrawing like unproductive, unhelpful, unhealthy habits first and sticking with that and then adding in something that's going to support you better.
Yeah, I agree. It's just about shifting the way that you use that time, isn't it? And like you have to recognize the things that aren't productive for you, and shift out of those into a new healthy behavior. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's given you some inspiration of like how to do that. I think one of the other things that people probably also wonder is if like they can just if they do this alone or if they can incorporate this kind of things with like their partner, friends.
Yeah.
Absolutely, like definitely. I think also in these situations where you are moving out of like bad behaviors into good ones, you sometimes need a bit of accountability, right? So like having somebody to do all of these things with would actually
Yeah.
be very beneficial, I believe, as well. So yeah, I think that kind of
Sums it
definitely
up.
sums it up. Um,
I want to say one last thing because I said it earlier and I'll say it again just as a last note for people. If you're struggling to give yourself permission to have self care, to focus on loving yourself a little bit more, I know that it's most important when it comes from ourselves, but you get permission. I'm giving you permission right now. I'm giving you permission. Sophie is giving you permission. You are already deserving of all of the care, all of the love, all of the kindness. And so it's just a matter of remembering you gotta show yourself a little bit of that. But we're giving you the permission. So if you needed that, we're giving it to you today.
for sure, we give you permission. So, with that said, thank you for listening to our episode today. If this did resonate with you, be sure to give us a like, and we'd love to hear your feedback in the comments about what topics you'd like to hear more about. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us on socials, and join the community at timesnothealer.com. All the details can be found in the episode description below. And remember, you hold the power to heal. Until next time, you've got this.